Good evening, I'm Susan Banks.
And I'm Keith Ranford.
For months, we've been reporting on the murders in Buffalo, sometimes one right after the other. 35 killings since January. We decided that it was time to stop just reporting about the violence, try to be part of the process in finding a way to stop it, in finding a way to get our city back.
So we have asked elected officials, community leaders, and regular citizens to join us tonight in a town meeting.
We don't expect to find a solution in 1 hour, but we do hope to open a meaningful dialogue.
First, though, we're going to show you tonight why what we are doing here is so important. It all started on the 12th of January. Police found 59-year-old Joanne Larrabee stabbed to death inside her West Ferry apartment. Then on January 18th, 25-year-old Edward Clemens was shot to death in a deli parking lot on Jefferson Avenue. Just 2 days after that, on the 20th of January, 35-year-old Arnold Smith was robbed and stabbed to death outside the Derby Lounge in the Central Park Plaza. January 22nd, police discover a gruesome scene. The body of 18-year-old James Mack dumped behind a church on Main Street. He'd been tortured, sexually abused, strangled, and then set on fire. January 31st, 33-year-old Oscar Paris was shot to death during a basketball game at the Crucial Community Center on Moselle Street.
February 8th, 25-year-old Jeffrey Williams shot while taking a cigarette break from Sean's House of Masters on East Delavan Avenue. February 13th, 20-year-old Anthony Wizarek killed by a driver going the wrong way on the Skyway.
It just goes to show it could happen anywhere.
February 17th, 24-year-old Maxime Myrtle shot to death on Hewitt Avenue. Then on February 25th, 26-year-old Patrick Cranston, 32-year-old Donette McClary, and 28-year-old Farron Williams, all found shot to death in a Bailey Avenue apartment. March 2nd, 51-year-old Johnny Staten, beaten to death on Williams Street. 20-year-old Jasper Bird shot to death at the corner of Butler and Wohlers.
The 11th of March, 31-year-old Richard Olds was stabbed to death inside of his Beverly Road home. April 17th, 19-year-old Thomas Graham was shot to death in the bedroom of his Shirley Avenue home. April 27th, 23-year-old Devon Wise shot to death in his Moore Avenue apartment. May 2nd, 20-year-old Francisco Edwin De La Torre was shot and killed in a drive-by shooting on Maryland Street near West Avenue. And then the very next day, May 3rd, 31-year-old Michael Eaton shot in the head in his Elmwood Avenue apartment. And 36-year-old William Ransom was shot in his car on West Delavan.
May the 4th, 46-year-old Ossie Redden was beaten and stabbed to death in his Gray Street home. May 5th, 43-year-old Gail McFarland was shot to death in her Leroy Street home, allegedly by her boyfriend, Frank Murphy, who is also suspected in homicides number 18 through 20. May 7th, 27-year-old Darren Robinson was shot to death in a field on Emsley Street. May 12th, 15-year-old Chautauqua Pete and 27-year-old Tamika Williams were gunned down in their home on Northumberland. And 31-year-old Patrick Bush was shot during an argument on Smith Street. May 13th, 19-year-old Taiwan Lee Harwell was shot on Parade Avenue, and 25-year-old Rashawn Banks was shot in the street near his Interpark Avenue home.
May 19th, 23-year-old Remus Bracey was shot to death outside of a Genesee Street bar. 38-year-old Angelia Reed was stabbed in a North Street apartment, and 23-year-old John Jamel Taylor was shot and killed on Broadway. May 22nd, 42-year-old Robert Tatu was gunned down in the hallway of his apartment building on Elmwood Avenue. May 23rd, 18-year-old Randy Ross was shot and killed in a drive-by shooting on Fillmore. And 21-year-old Raymond Mouchat was found gunned down behind a house on Glenwood Avenue. May 30th, 28-year-old Lucia Orocho was stabbed to death inside of her Perry Street apartment, allegedly by the father of her 3 children. And May 31st, 20-year-old Davida Petty was shot and killed in an Amherst apartment.
Let's introduce you now to the panel whom we have in our studio. First, Mr. Ralph Hernandez, an activist for the Hispanic community. Tonight's representative from the Buffalo Urban League, Brenda McDuffie. Buffalo City Court Judge, James McLeod. course, our mayor of Buffalo, Anthony Masiello. We have Common Council President James Pitts, Buffalo Police Commissioner Rocco Dina, Erie County Executive Joel Giambra. We have local NAACP chapter president Frank Messiah. We're going to try to do this in order if we can. The Reverend Darius Pridgeon, pastor and community activist, and of course, Mr. Giambra. Kenneth Simmons of Mad Dads, an organization of fathers who want to take an active role in their neighborhoods. Buffalo Common Council, this would be our Erie County District Attorney Frank Clark, and Buffalo Common Council member at large, Beverly Gray. Thank you all. Behind them, our studio audience, including representatives of the clergy, the political world, and concerned citizens. We welcome you all tonight.
All right, we have to start somewhere, and I think the best place to start this evening is with the police commissioner, Rocco Dina. You are on the front line here. Your police officers are coming back from these crime scenes, these homicides. We'd like to know, what are they telling you as to what they see out there, why these things are happening? Because what we hear most often is drugs, 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 guns, guns, guns. But is that in fact true? Is that the main reason why we're seeing all this trouble right now?
Well, first of all, Keith, I think you have to put this in its proper perspective. There certainly has been a spike in homicides, and we're very concerned about that, and it's a very serious problem. But overall, crime has decreased dramatically in the city of Buffalo for the last 7 years. Overall, crime has. But we are addressing the homicides, and specifically with the homicides. Number one, they're very difficult to deter. They're for several different reasons. Second of all, in most of these heinous crimes and most of these homicides, we catch the criminals, and with the cooperation of Frank Clark, our district attorney, we convict them.
But what are your people telling you is causing all of this? Is it the gangs? Is it the drugs? Is it the guns? Or is it a combination of all?
There's several reasons. Right now, I would say the breakdown of societal values. I think the breakdown, we have people killing people in their own family, gunfire in church, and it's much more than just a police problem. It's all of our problem. The reason crime decreased is because we work together as a community, and I think in this case we all have to accept some responsibility, and I'm glad to have the million moms here who work so closely.
But again,
secondly, Keith,
is it the drug problem and the gun problem?
Secondly, guns, no question about it. We have to get the guns off the street. In the year 2000, we took 1,000 guns off the street, and this year already we've taken over 400 off the street. Guns, societal problems, breakdown in families, and thirdly, drugs, certainly drugs. A lot of these crimes are settling disputes over drug activity, and most of our crime, frankly, not only in this city of Buffalo, but in other urban centers throughout this country, are really drug related.
All right, Commissioner, we will get back to you. Susan?
Okay, Commissioner Dina brought up a lot of issues that we're going to be discussing tonight. We will be coming back to our studio, but first let's go out to Luke Moretti and Maria Gennaro. They're with some people who have a lot to say tonight and probably also have a lot of questions to ask. They're at the Friends to the Elderly Center on East Utica Street. Luke and Maria?
All right, Susan, thank you very much. And as you mentioned, we are with people here who have a lot to say. And while that report was running about all of the homicides that have occurred in recent months, I noticed, Maria, a lot of people in the audience here visibly shaken by that as that fear and that those feelings come back.
It's horrible. Most people here have been affected by crime by one way or the other, and we do have activists here, we have clergy here, we have victims of crime, family victims of crime, and they all have a lot to say.
Yeah, and we were talking earlier about people on the front lines and so forth. You're going to hear the stories of people who have been profoundly impacted by the violence that's taking place in this community. One of the things, besides the fact that we're talking about so many homicides, is the nature of some of these brutal crimes. Let's take a look. More shocking than the number of killings is how brutal, bizarre, and cold many of them are.
There's this culture where a certain type of violence is acceptable. It's an acceptable way of life for somebody who thinks that they're being disrespected or has some minor problem with somebody else to take out a gun and shoot that person.
For James Jerome Mack, it wasn't a bullet that ended his life. His body found behind St. Louis Church in January. Police say he was beaten, choked, sexually assaulted, and burned for no apparent reason. 9 days later, 33-year-old Oscar Paris is shot and killed at the Crucial Community Center, considered a safe haven in a troubled neighborhood. Then, 3 bodies are carried out of this Bailey Avenue apartment. All 3 victims shot execution style in the head. Bullets even pierced the sanctity of St. Martin de Porres Church in April, when a gun went off at the funeral of a murder victim. Authorities say it's the work of a few, destroying life for many.
We're tired of being victimized and stigmatized by a few bums.
Youth killing youth in broad daylight, on the street, in front of children. Whether it's a lack of respect, a decline in morals, or parents stumbling in the upbringing process, most agree it's time to find out what's gone wrong.
These are not issues, I think, that develop overnight where somebody just decides that they're going to kill somebody or take somebody's life. So it's a whole bigger picture issue.
The murder rate continues to climb, and in some Queen City neighborhoods, the fear factor is not far behind. Now, as we said, we're talking about violent crimes, brutal crimes, and we promised you that you're going to be hearing stories from the people affected by this. I'd like to introduce to you Denise and Deanne Daniels, twins. They're cousins of Raymond Mushat, who was killed in May. You tell me that the crime was not drug-related, happened because of who he knew and the people he was hanging around with. Denise, what do you have to say about all this tonight? What's the message you want to get across for not only the panel back at the studio of politicians, but the people in the viewing audience?
I guess it's most important for us to, as a family, we're devastated. Our lives will never be the same. Not one member of my family can hold their head up high. We can't walk down the street without feeling like we're missing a part of ourselves. So yes, they killed Raymond Mushat, but they also killed his mother, myself. A part of all of us will never be the same again.
What are you doing to get through this? And I know we hear closure tossed around all the time, and I don't think there's ever any closure with this kind of a thing, but give us an idea how you get through each day, each hour.
We were a tight family, a good family. We always stuck beside each other, so that's exactly what we're doing during this time. Making sure that no one is alone, making sure that everyone has someone, and that when we are feeling bad, and we have the right to feel bad, we at least talk amongst ourselves.
What's the problem out there?
I'm a first grade teacher, so I can tell you that if we start teaching children young what a bullet does to a body, if they see that early enough, if they realize what one killing does to a person, a family, then maybe it will make a difference. I really think people don't recognize or even understand that a bullet is not just meant for one person, or that it does deteriorate the body. People who kill people don't stay around long enough to see that body go cold. The only time they see, what they've done and feel remorse is when they go to court and when they are sentenced. They don't know the reality of it. They don't know that my poor cousin sat there for 6 hours. They don't know that people die of bullet holes, that they lay and die and bleed to death. They don't understand that. So if people just start teaching their kids early that bullets do kill, show them what a bullet really does to a body. Show them that it's not about you or what you've done to me. Show them what it does to a body, and then show them what it does to a family, how it devastates good people. That would make the difference.
And I think we're learning some of that tonight. And Denise Daniels, thank you very much. We appreciate it. I know this is very, very difficult for you. Thank you for coming and sharing your thoughts on that. One of many stories that you're going to hear tonight. Let's go over to Maria now.
And here's another one, Luke. Of course, we're coming up on a very sad anniversary here for Gloria Clark, and you had a very difficult time, especially tonight, watching the opening. Tell me what your anniversary is.
July 1st marks the first anniversary of my son's. My son was shot and killed as he was leaving a nightclub on the east side of Buffalo, and it was not drug related. He was neither a seller nor a user of drugs. He was shot for no apparent reason. Apparently, the young man that shot and killed Darian did not even know him.
Gloria, that's important to point out, because I know a lot of people, they look and they say, well, another shooting on the east side, must be another drug dealer, must be another gangbanger, and it's not the case.
At all, it's not the case. They don't know why that young man shot my son, and he's still at large. It's been almost a year. He has not been apprehended yet. They know who he is. They just do not know where he is.
Gloria, what do you think? What's a solution? If you had to put it in a nutshell, I mean, there's not one solution, obviously, or else we would have found it by now.
Maria, I think the number one priority is to rid the city of the guns. That is my thinking. Getting rid of the guns, then everything else will basically fall into place. Guns, people are just too easy to kill people. There's no love.
We're going to address that right now.
There's no love.
Gloria, thank you. We're going to address it right now. As a matter of fact, Susan has more on that. Susan.
We're talking about gangs controlling the streets, a social structure that by many accounts is broken down. All some of the reasons targeted for creating our current crime wave. Maria talked to a gang member and a former gang member about how they see the situation.
Matter of a few phone calls, you know. One person, you call one person, that one person called one person, next day you probably got a gun in your hand. Or even that same day. See, that's the thing. Everybody think that, you know what I'm saying, we such bad people. No, I mean, you know, we live regular lives just like the rest of everybody, just like the rest of the people. You know what I'm saying, we got jobs, you know what I'm saying, we take care of our own, you know what I'm saying? Exactly, you know?
Everybody gonna try to make ends meet the way they can. I'm saying, if you growing up, I'm saying your mom's got like 7, 8 kids, and she a single parent. Come on, man, you know, you ain't gonna want to see your mom struggle, so you gonna go out there and try to get it the way you can. That means if you gotta rob somebody, you gotta hustle, you gotta kill, whatever. I'm saying. See, me, it probably would have been different with me, honestly. If I'd have grown up with both my friends, it probably would have been different. I'm saying, I can't say for sure, yeah, I'd have been straight A student. I'm saying, I was a straight A student for a while, and I'm blood. If they nobody had jobs, Burger King, you scraping the grill, then you got to deal with them customers yelling at you and whatnot, and for what? A penny? Come on. I say about a good 500.
$500 a day dealing weed. And what about coke?
Coke?
What? Man, you coming out. You coming out pretty nice. Man, at least a G.
Yeah, I think about it, but I'd be like, yo, if it was the other way around, would that person would have been less violent with me? No. Exactly. So if I got the chance, yeah, I'm taking advantage of it. Fashion, that's the way it is. School nowadays, fashion show. Basically. Feel like this, just like that's why so many people drop it out of school. Because say they ain't got nothing with their school, they don't go.
I want to point out the one former gang member whose face we digitized because we didn't want you to recognize him, has very strong parents who are helping him get over this. And he also has the help of this man here. This is Quentin Thompson. He is a counselor. He works with a lot of these gang members. Quentin, what is the problem?
Well, the problem is a lot of unstructured time. What we're trying to do in the summer is have a gang summit. We're going to need a lot of commitment and productivity out of people. Commitment for those that's involved and productivity as far as being productive.
But you were saying that kids after school, they have nothing to do.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys like me that's out there who's willing to help these kids, you know, so we need more mentoring programs.
And to work with them. What about all of the money that they make, dealing drugs and that sort of thing? How do you get around that? We talked with one kid from the gang who said, hey, you know, I'm not going to flip burgers for $5 an hour when I can make $1,000 a day selling coke.
Yes, the problem out there, easy money. I grew up on the streets as well, the same streets as where these kids come from. And yes, easy money. That's what a lot of these kids want. I mean, because it's hard. You know, I'm going through like a little struggle with myself. You know, I completed my bachelor's. I've completed my master's.
They don't know how to struggle.
Yeah, but still, there's no job opportunities out there for me as well. So a lot of kids see that, you know, and that's what they get that negative.
All right. Quentin, we're running out of time. I thank you very much for joining us, and all the good work you do with the kids is wonderful. Back to you, Keith.
All right, thanks, Maria. Let's get to our panel now. They're been sitting here patiently listening to all this. Gentlemen, ladies, Mayor, maybe I could start with you. What are we going to do? You've heard these concerns from the people. You certainly know what's happening. What are we going to do to try and stop this? Give us your reaction.
Keith, we need to do several things. Number one, you have to have a police response to this, and we are marshaling all the law enforcement resources and personnel that we can to protect the public. But that's only part of it. The other things we have to do is we have to have a community response. Parents have to be better parents. Government officials have to be better government officials. The clergy have to step to the plate, our not-for-profit community, the people who are running programs, everybody holistically, number one, has to decide that we have to influence children at an early age in a more positive way. We have to lecture them about the evils of guns and drugs at a very early age. We have to give them the structure, the discipline, and the love in all aspects, from family to school to the community center to whatever aspect of their life that they're in. Somebody has to be reinforcing values, fundamentals, and respect. That is, I think, a community response from your government.
Are you getting that from the community?
I think in some cases we are, yes. One of the things, though, we need to do is collectively accept that challenge and that responsibility. But also, I think there's a lot of programs out there, quite frankly, that either are being run well and are not in the right place, such as in our schools where they belong. Other programs, quite frankly, should be reviewed and decided whether or not they're good in the first place. And if they are, fine. If they're not, then we have to change those programs. But there's got to be a coordinated effort from school. And I bet a lot of these young people who unfortunately are involved in this kind of criminality, somewhere in their early educational process, there were signs of problems. And right then and there is where we need to begin to deal with many of these problems.
All right, who can tell me,
from pre-K right through high school and more.
Getting back to the gun issue for a minute, I don't understand where all these guns are coming from, especially in this country where we have, the guns are governed to such a degree. Who can tell me where are these guns coming from?
Keith, according to the police personnel that I talked to, firstly, New York State has the toughest gun laws of any state in the country, but still isn't good enough because our neighboring states of Ohio and Pennsylvania have very weak gun laws. They're very easily moved into places like Buffalo and other cities in New York State. They're very easily gotten in the hands of the wrong people. So we have to figure out a way, and the federal government has to, own up to that responsibility to help put an end to the manufacturing of these guns, these handguns that, quite frankly, serve no purpose, assault weapons, than to kill people.
All right, Councilman Pitts.
Yeah, Keith, I think the issue about the guns is there and drugs and all that other stuff, but what you see is a lack of hope. And I think if you drive around the East Side and if you look at what the young fella just talked about, he's got a bachelor's degree and a master's degree, he can't find a job. And I think we've got to embrace young people. We have to embrace the East Side. We have to get rid of the stereotypes. The East Side generally is a wonderful community. It's not a bad community. And if you look at some of the problems that we have today, it has to be rebuilt. For instance, if we begin to look at the latest report that was done by Henry Taylor from the University of Buffalo, where he talked about some of the problems, some of the health problems that exist within the East Side, where they don't have access to medical care, where they don't have jobs, where economic development is not a centralized point. And I think many of the young people are embracing much of this illegality because they're not given opportunities in other areas. All right, and I think we should use this as an opportunity.
This is as an opportunity. But what can we do?
I'm saying, let me finish. I think in that same report, Dr. Taylor talked about forming a community policing partnership between the neighborhoods, the police department, and all of the resources. And we have many of these resources that are part of this panel to go out and take back those streets and work with those kids, take the money that we have in City Hall, a lot of it that we're giving to other goals, and put it on the East Side and hire these kids and give them some hope. And I think that recommendation to form that community policing task force is something that we should use this opportunity to do. And I'm going to propose that and work with the mayor and also many of these panelists who are here today. And if you take Reverend Pridgeon and some of the things that have been taking place in talking about stopping violence, I think we've got to go back and give people hope, give them jobs, and rebuild the East Side.
Let me intervene. This is deeper than that. Until you take the criminality out of the drugs and you take the profit motive out of the drugs, then people will have no reason for killing each other. This is the same thing we had in Prohibition, when you created the Dutch Schultzes, the Bugsy Morans, the Al Capones, the St. Valentine's Day Massacre.
Are you saying to legalize drugs then?
I'm talking about controlling the drugs the same as liquor is controlled. that you have a place now to go where drugs are controlled, just like liquor is controlled. The people said the same thing about alcohol. The country was going to end up all drunks. They didn't, because you ended up, you have stores where you can buy it under the conditions. You have laws that say if you're using it while you're driving, you go to jail. There's all kind of controls. But until you take the criminality out of it, just like they said on that program, those kids are going to go out and sell that stuff, make $1,000, but if they can't make it, if there's no profit, there's no reason to buy the guns, there's no reason to shoot each other and establish territories.
Mr. Messiah, we have somebody in the audience who would like to respond to that. Sam Herbert, who is a community activist. I see you over here about to jump out of your chair.
I think it's refreshing to hear Frank Messiah actually knock the nail on the head. And that is what...
Talking about decriminalizing drugs?
Decriminalizing the drugs. I spoke with folks in the street. I went to the street. I didn't see any of y'all walking the street, but I went to the street. And I asked them, and they told me exactly what he said. And I asked them, I said, well, what about establishing a legal drug zone where individuals can go purchase this drug? Those individuals who have felonies, who have marks on their record, can sell these drugs in that zone, be paid for taxes, have that money refiltered, and come back in the community. They said that was a great idea. I thought they was crazy. But
is that even feasible?
No, that's not feasible. But what is feasible? What is feasible is holding the mayor's foot, holding the police commissioner's foot, holding James Pitt's foot, and every individual up there except for Kenny Simmons' foot to the fire, because this is just not happening, okay? There is no plan in place to combat or to put in place a preventive mechanism to stop this. And the mayor's been there for 8 years. There's no plan for the East Side. James Pitt's been there, and the kids are telling me when we see our elected officials can't get along among themselves, who are being sold out, then what hope do we have?
Well, we're talking about a lot of issues here, Mr. Herbert. I believe Council Member Gray wanted to say something.
Beverly, go ahead.
I'll try. What I'm hearing from Mr. Messiah is something that has been said amongst many people, is that we must talk about the hard issues, decriminalization of drugs. Then we must talk about what Mr. Pitts is talking about. Right. Look at the East Side and look at the West Side. Do you see the killing taking place in North Buffalo, Delaware, Niagara? Do you see it? There's a difference. There is no plan for the East Side. 40 years, no plan. When do we develop a plan?
We have a question from our remote location. Maria Gennaro is out there now, and let's see what we have to say.
Maria, go ahead.
Thank you, Susan. I have a gentleman here who would like to pose a question to the panel. Your name, sir?
My name is Ron Fleming. I'm president of the Board of Block Clubs of Buffalo and Erie County. And what we're saying from the Block Club standpoint is that we want to draw a line in the sand. In other words, how many times can a person victimize a senior citizen before they get locked up for a long period of time?
Who do you want to direct that question to?
That's directed to Judge McLeod. And then a side question to that, to the commissioner, we want to bring back the canine dogs. We feel that when people look out their door and see a police officer with a canine dog on the corner, they'll feel safe to be able to walk to the store and not run a gauntlet, and even our students on the way to school.
Judge, all right,
Judge, go ahead.
Well, I guess in an attempt to answer that question, as a judge, we're only able to do so much with cases. What we face every day are cases that are brought to us by the police department, prosecuted by the district attorney's office. If the evidence is there under the law that we're compelled to follow, then a result will come about.
I don't make that decision, though.
We will then, if a conviction comes about, we have other systems that work with us, that the probation department and other agencies like that give us the opportunity to decide what an appropriate sentence would be. In my court, the Buffalo City Court, the maximum sentence that I can impose is 1 year at the county correctional facility. The type of sentences that Mr. Fleming seems to be referring to are sentences that are imposed in county and Supreme Court. Those are things that are beyond our jurisdiction. So as to what we can do depends on the case that's presented to us, the evidence as it is presented.
All right, District Attorney Frank Clark, you're here this evening. Your thoughts on all of this? You're very close to the justice system. What's coming across your desk, and why is it that these people, these repeat offenders, keep showing up on the streets?
Well, I think there's a number of reasons. Number one, and I think it might have been mentioned before, while I understand and appreciate why we're all here tonight, and the homicides have taken a dramatic rise from the past couple of years, other violent crime is not up. It's down.
But we're here to talk about this homicide situation.
I know we are, but I don't think you can just separate one from the other. I think the problem is the same. We started to hear from some of the community leaders what we have to do. We have to get to the kids at an earlier age. We have to give them something to do. By the way, there are no more drugs and guns on the street this year than last year. And last year we had 38 homicides.
So what's happened?
Well, you know, part of the thing is we don't know what's happened. To say it's all drug related is wrong. It's not. We have a lot of random acts being committed by people who I don't think understand quite what's going on. I mean, we have killings that are for no reason. Somebody can't get, they're not playing the next basketball game. So they take out a gun and shoot the guy who's I mean, that's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. We have situations, we have domestic violence situations. We have people who seem to reach to violence to settle even petty arguments before they get together in dialogue. That's the problem.
Maybe
not
the breakdown of society?
That's part of the problem, but it's not the whole problem. It's a complex problem that doesn't have a ready answer. Legalizing drugs isn't the answer.
Mr. Clark, we have several people here from the Sons of God organization. Mr. Alan Powell, you had something you wanted to say.
I do. The first question I have is for Mayor Masiello. I've made an interesting observation, and it goes for Joe Giambra. I've observed that there are tons of office buildings being built all around this city. There apparently are employment opportunities coming into this city that other people are not being given an opportunity to pursue. Obviously, if those companies are coming in, you have to be giving up some tax breaks, some benefits, and some opportunities. Why are these companies not being encouraged, A, to move closer to the city or into the city? Why are these buildings going up into the city? And then secondly, why not work with the companies that are coming in and the businesses that are coming in and start to put a program that will allow people who are gainfully employed to go into the cities and work with people and help them become a part of our society. Because the struggles are, the very few have to do the work of the many. Right. And most of us are working hard to try to provide, and the companies are sitting back, reaping the benefits and not helping in this situation.
All right, let's ask the county executive to address that question.
One more.
Well, let's let him answer your first question, and then we'll let you ask another one. What about encouraging more companies to come into the city? Because this is a question that I have heard raised since we decided to have this program. Many people have brought up this very issue. We need jobs. That if people have jobs, they're unlikely to take a gun to work. They'll be gainfully employed, they'll be busy, they'll have self-respect, they'll have something to do.
Susan, that's a very valid point. The gentleman makes a great point in that we have an economic crisis here that what we appear to be doing is treating the symptom, and the symptom is the murders. The disease is the mental health issues that the mayor talked about earlier. What we're trying to do is create an economic condition here that allows for businesses that are here to expand and to lure more businesses here. We're working in that regard every day. The more jobs we create, the more chance there is of putting a person to work, being gainfully employed, and less chance that they're going to be on the streets dealing drugs. But we have to do this in a holistic way. The mental health issue here is a real one. To think about somebody takes a gun and pulls the trigger and has no respect for human life, there's a mental health issue there. I'm not a doctor, but I suspect that most people will agree. So we've got to start treating the disease here, the mental health problems, the fact that homes are being torn apart, the economic conditions. We need to recommit ourselves to creating new jobs and opportunity here. That will go a long way.
What about job training? When we're talking about bringing in jobs, many people have complained that we don't have the skilled workers to provide.
We're spending $90 million a year right now at Erie County, the city of Buffalo, through the federal government, through our workforce investment. We are providing job training opportunities, retraining for existing employees. So the programs are there. We've got to find a way to get these kids off the streets and into the programs. And the churches and the faith-based community is a huge piece of the puzzle here that we're working on with the mayor and others.
All right, let's just before we get to you, Mayor, Brenda McDuffie has been sitting here patiently from the Urban League. Your thoughts on this? What are the people that you meet with every day? What are they telling you about possible solutions to this violence?
The individuals that we're in contact with the Urban League are basically crying out the same as the community. Our young people, as we talk to them, are saying they want to live in safe environments. They want to feel safe. Solutions, rebuilding our families, rebuilding our community structure, restoring people's hope through providing opportunities for jobs, is critical in dealing with this issue. The law enforcement issues, I think, are critical to be addressed, the number of guns that are available, the whole notion of the important and respect for life. They're asking us, and we're a partner with the community in terms of working particularly with our faith community to rebuild character and morals within our entire society.
All right, let's go to Reverend Pridgeon. What are the people who you see every Sunday? What are they telling you?
You know, two of the most heinous murders here, I did the funerals, were at my church. James Mack was at my church, and the young lady, 15-year-old. We're just seeing people who are afraid. But let me say this very quickly. There's a three-step process that is real clear, and we keep talking around it. But one is that one of the greatest ways of crime prevention, especially violence, is to change the economic condition of the masses of people. That's number one. If you don't look at that, then we're missing a piece. The secondary prevention is to target the vulnerable persons in that community. And the third is to prevent the reoccurrence from happening. And I think that people oftentimes look at drugs and just look at the drugs, but you have to look at why these pieces are there. So you have to change the family.
What about the breakdown of the family? How many single parents do you have coming to your church?
Well, you know, I have a lot of single parents, probably about 60%, but I don't think that that's the problem, because I think a single mother can do a great job if she can feed her child or if her child can eat. So I don't think that that's the problem at all.
Mad Dads, Mr. Simmons.
Well, I think really everybody just really more or less just beating around the bush. The fact of the matter is that we got a lot of money in the city and we got a lot of money in the county, and they always complaining about what we going to do about these young brothers on these corners, what is we going to do about these homicides, what is we going to do about the crime. Well, first of all, when myself or Brother Dwayne or Brother Tim Jackson, we out there doing street patrol, Deacon Giles and Deacon Brown, the first thing the young brothers tell us is, man, if we could get us a job, man, we would stop doing what we doing. You know what I'm saying? They got job programs in every other community. They got job trainings in every other community. They got everything everywhere else. But right there where the crime is happening, where the people being victimized, it's nothing for the young brother to do. It's no jobs for them. It's no educational opportunities for them. We have an educational opportunity, you know, the budget get cut, or we have a job training program. They can't come over here because the people who running it scared to come in our community or whatever. But the fact of the matter is that people who made it out of our community, people that was born and raised on the east side, a lot of them get their PhD or their master's degree and they move out. A lot of them will ride by and talk about a brother that got his pants sagging or a brother with his hair braided, but won't tell that same brother how they stepped up and how they struggled and made it out of the ghetto. You got our own people looking down upon each other. You got our own people fighting and bickering amongst each other and pointing the finger. And what's happening is, you know, ain't nothing new under the sun. The problem been here. Just like the district attorney said, these guns and these drugs been here. Let's get past that. Let's get to the solution.
Right.
The solution is we got all the resources up here to do what we need to do.
Mr. Simmons, thank you. We want to go out to Luke Moretti now at our remote location. I believe there's a question out there.
We have a lot of people out here, Susan, wanting to talk, and we keep hearing a common theme tonight. We hear drugs, and we're talking about money, and we're talking about young kids desperate, a feeling of desperation, hopelessness, maybe the easy way out to deal drugs and so forth, and then the violence comes right into that. But how do you get out of that? How do you break out of that mold to come off the streets and become a productive member of society? That's the question. Let's talk to someone who did that. I'm joined by Daryl Mason. He is a former gang member from 1978. You're a recovering alcoholic. You ran the streets as a gang member. You say the motivation is the same, money for drugs. First of all, how did you get out of this?
I got out of it because I turned my life over to God, for one. You know, and I struggle to get where I'm at today, you know, and my point is
I'm here today because I ran those streets for all my life. And I'm here today to talk to the mayor, to talk to the county executive. Want to know why they're putting up these buildings. They're saying we got jobs in the community, but they won't hire anybody with a gang relation background. And I'm one of those that didn't get hired, and I have a qualified background, and they refused me for a job.
What are you doing right now?
Right now, I'm volunteering at an outpatient clinic, helping recovering alcoholics and drug addicts to get back into the community, to get back out in that world and see what it's like.
But you are the proof that it can be done, that you can come out of this, you can be a productive member of society. You've done it, and you're here to tell the other kids, give it a try.
Yes, I am. And recovery is what you make it. I've been in recovery since 1992. Haven't had looked back at all.
Okay, Daryl, thank you very much. I want to run over here because I have another person I want to talk to. Stand up, please, if you would. Give us your name, and I know you had some comments for the panel.
Yes, my name is Solar Ingram, and the first comment for the panel and for the audience today is to say, you know what, if we're going to take back our streets, we need to take back our heritage, because when you start talking about urban neighborhoods, we need to look at who they're really talking about. The other thing I would like to reference to something that the mayor put in the paper a few weeks ago. I do believe it was a Saturday's edition. How do you plan on healing the community, and you're calling the same young men and women we're trying to help, and you're calling them punks? I don't see.
Maybe the mayor would maybe the mayor would like to quickly
let's give him an opportunity to respond. Let's go back to the panel, and Mayor Masiello, would you like to address that,
I would
Mayor?
love to respond to that. Firstly, in the context of what I said at the press conference, I was sick and tired of a few punks stigmatizing and victimizing the community. 99% of those people in that community on the east side and the west side are good, law-abiding, hardworking, beautiful people. And the fact of the matter is, when these people, these criminals, do take somebody's life, when they blow away somebody's son or daughter, to me, they're worse than punks. I don't care what color you are, I don't care where you come from. The fact of the matter is, they're creating significant psychological and emotional and economic problems for the rest of us in this community. So, yes, I was angry. And I don't take that back, ma'am. I'm sorry, because in the context of what I said, a lot of great people like yourself, unfortunately, because of these kinds of tragic, heinous crimes perpetrated by terrible people at this particular time, causes havoc for all of us. So, yeah, that's the context of what I said and why I said it.
Luke? All right, thank you very much. Again, as we said, we have a lot of people here. We're going to try to get to as many people as possible. Maria is standing by with someone right now.
Thank you very much, Luke. I'm here with Robert Carr. He's a school teacher here in Buffalo. He teaches 7th graders, and you think that parents have to be more accountable for their kids.
Yes, I feel that each parent should be accountable for their child. It's things that we see every day. I'm there in the schools, teaching, helping these children.
How many of your kids have both a mother and a father raising them?
Very few. I want to say 20%. I just feel that if we all can come together as a community to help our parents and help our children, this would be a better place to live.
Robert, thank you very much for your comments. We appreciate them. Back to you, Susan.
Okay, thank you, Maria. Eula Naylor has some comments she'd like to make. Tell us about your organization or your affiliation.
Okay, I have an organization called Families United Never Divided Support Group, and it is a non-funded organization.
What do you think about what we've been talking about tonight about the breakdown in families? And some of our panelists have said that we have a societal problem in Buffalo. It's not guns, drugs.
Well, I think that it has been brought out that many of the persons who have been involved in the violence that has been caught and arrested have had some dealings with the system in detention or either foster care or adoption. And that's what I do, because there has been a tremendous breakdown of the family, and many of the families should not have been dismantled because of the little reasons that the Department of Social Services has taken them. And I'll use it as an example, the case in Idaho where the mother was arrested for neglect and the children's held the people at bay, and it came out that this mother is not a neglectful mother. The children were not harmed, and so that was, and then a judge comes in.
So you're saying that sometimes it's the system that breaks down.
System that is breaking down the family unnecessarily. I cannot deny that there is not some children that need to be moved from that parent, but when Mondale Act came in, it was always to preserve the family. And so if you have, and the department is acknowledging this now, that if you have extended, and they're kind of changing that word and trying to make it apply to those that are not biological, but if you had extended family member throughout the United States, they could have transferred children to any from state to state to keep.
Well, we're talking about sometimes a national
problem. There is a lot of anger, pain and anger that is going on with our youth today, because when they get 18 years old, they don't, and the people that are doing the foster and adoption basically will not collect another dollar on them, so they throw them out in the streets, and they're basically homeless, they're disconnected, and they're heartless. And so I think that people need to take another look at the Department of Social Services. It needs to be revamped. It needs, our community need to be monitoring where our children are going.
Okay, Ms. Naylor, we have to move along. Let's go to Ralph Hernandez on our panel. Let's talk about one of our fastest growing segments in our population, the Hispanic community. How do you see the situation in your community, Mr. Hernandez?
Well, first of all, the first thing I'd like to say is decriminalizing drugs certainly is not the answer as far as I'm concerned. We need to pay more attention to our children. We need to communicate them. It's not enough anymore to say go to this center or go to that center or go to the movies. Sometimes you have to take them, because you'd be surprised how much you're able to accomplish in a 5-minute ride between one point or the other. My son just went to a function this past Saturday over a non-alcoholic dance on Franklin that they have once a month. Everybody from the city was practically there. They had maybe 6,000, 7,000 kids there. They had a line 4 blocks long, and it went from 9 to 1 o'clock in the morning. Would you believe that some of those kids never got into the dance? These are the kind of things that we have to guard against. These are the kind of things we have to be very careful about, because these are the innocent bystanders that can get hurt. The other point that I like to make is we're asking children, most of these kids, to make this, a lot of them have to make these adult decisions that result in adult consequences. Many of these kids don't even have the necessary skills just to get through life.
All right, thank you, sir. We have just a quick question. We want to get as many people on as we can. This is Kathy Ward Lovejoy from What's Up Magazine. You've got a question for the panel.
Yes, and I also represent a grassroots organization for racial reconciliation here.
Okay, if you could get on with your question, thanks.
Oh, sure. Reverend Darius Pridgeon, I have a question for you. Do you have any plans in the future to help bring churches together from the suburbs with the urban city churches?
Maybe that's a good idea. Cooperation from the suburbs and the inner city. That's probably going on already, isn't it?
Yeah, you know, and it's odd because we're working with some churches out of Cheektowaga and some other places, especially with Safe Summer 2001, which is bringing together government, community-based organizations, concerned citizens under one hub. There are hundreds of volunteers, so that we do begin working together, not to create another organization, but as others have said, there are hundreds of programs already out there. And with the cooperation of our mayor, county executive, our council members that are here, and many others, we're pulling those pieces together right now as we speak.
All right. We need a little consolidation.
Yeah, right, and that's what it's about.
Let's go out to Maria Gennaro, who is at our remote location. Right, Keith?
Maria?
Thank you very much, Susan. I'm with Ken Robinson. He just lost his brother on May 6th. His brother's name was Darren Robinson. He was murdered. You say he had made a few bad choices in his life.
Well, I don't want to just characterize it as him having made a few bad choices. He had certainly been in the labor market. He had been laid off. He was trying to get back into the workforce. But I think that a lot of these problems that we're dealing with today, they're rooted in the dysfunction of the family unit.
And you wanted to pose a question to the panel as far as getting the family back together.
I do. In fact, I heard Reverend Pridgeon indicate that a substantial number of the females that are part of his church are single parents. I think that the more we do to get the traditional family unit back as a primary emphasis of us rebuilding our communities, that is the husband and the wife unit together, the stronger our children will be, the more intelligent they'll be, and the better decisions they'll make. So I would say to the panel, to Reverend Pridgeon, how do you feel as though, in terms of the male and female unit, how important is that in terms of reestablishing our communities and getting our men to be more peaceful toward each other, more responsible in their decision making. I believe if they have wives and children they're responsible for, their decision making will be just as responsible. So I'd like to hear his response.
I think it's a community situation that men in general in our community have to be accountable, upfront, and in control. I can't control, I think that from the clergy position, it is my responsibility to teach about family, but as a community role, we have to empower all men to be men and to be where they're supposed to be in our community.
Unfortunately, the clock is running. We want to get a couple more words from everybody on the panel. Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Keith. One segment that we don't have on this panel is from education. I know we've had some teachers talk, but I have many friends that are teachers. And for years, they've been telling me that kids come to school underfed, undernourished, poor self-respect. We expect them to learn and grow in a positive way, but they're not in a position to do that.
Does the city have a nutritional program?
Well, no, it's not just
nutritional education.
But here's the solution. The solution is taking all those community-based organizations, from government to not-for-profit, and putting them in our schools like we have 15 of them, so that you can get health, you can get counseling, you can get other kinds of help right in the school building at a very early age. To me, this is a no-brainer. Those programs are out there. Put them in a school.
Okay, we'll get to everybody first. Rocco, Dina, have you got enough men and money to put a dent in this problem?
Yes, we do. We have put a dent, and statistics back us up. We have a safe city when you compare it to any other urban centers, and we have a fine Buffalo Police Department, and I'm very proud of the hard-working men and women of the Buffalo Police Department, and they've done an excellent job, and we've decreased crime dramatically in the last 7 years.
All right, Commissioner, thank you.
Erie County Executive Joel Giambra, you're talking about economic development. This was a platform that you ran on. What can you tell us about the kind of jobs you're trying to bring into this community?
Well, we've had some good news recently, Susan, with the announcement of General Motors, $500 million, Quebecor, Adelphia, the council and the mayor worked out a scenario whereby there's going to be very aggressive minority affirmative action requirements. We're trying to do all that. We're trying to revamp our social service department so that we get more services, the mayor said, into schools. We're going through a whole re-engineering of our human service delivery system here to make sure that's more effective in dealing with the root of the problem.
A lot to do. We're going to try to hear from all our panelists tonight.
Until you take the criminality out of the drugs so that people will not have to kill each other, and we have hundreds of thousands of people going into jail. The biggest building program going on today is prisons to put in drug people.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You will have money left over to do all these other kind of programs.
Very quickly, 10 seconds. Mr. Pitts.
Yeah, let me just say that I think we need to develop a partnership with the East Side community. And I think what is going on now is
partnership between whom?
The partnership between downtown, uptown, east town, suburbs. Everybody talks about regionalism, but that community is usually left out.
All right,
I think we've got to bring hope to those kids, bring jobs and economic opportunity, and guess what? The violence will be gone.
All right, Frank Clark, final word from you.
I think that there's the answer. I think it's a community problem. We all have our role to play. We all have to accept responsibility for what's going on. We've heard some of the answers from all of these people who know it. Now we've finished talking about it. Let's get out there and do it.
Beverly Gray?
I co-sign James Pitts.
All right. Mr. Simmons?
I just think that everybody should just start keeping it real and get out here on the streets with the mad dads and everybody else that's out here doing street patrol and reaching out to these kids that's actually doing it and not talking about it for a political agenda, all that. Get out there, reach out, touch them brothers, see how you can help them, and give back to your community and stop playing.
Okay, one quick thing. Judge, from you?
I think Kenny Simmons has said, he said it all, we need jobs, but also I think the image that's been projected by the media needs to change. And in addition to that, the next time we have a forum like this, dealing with these issues, which is a city issue, this should not just be concentrated with people of color. We need to bring in everybody from the city of Buffalo to ask them, what are they going to do to help us make this work?
Point well taken. Brenda McDuffie, very quickly.
This is a community problem, and as the judge is saying, it involves every community. Whether the majority of the incidents have been on the east side or not, this problem affects everyone. People in our community are hurting, and we need to restore hope and opportunity.
Okay, Mr. Hernandez, final word from you.
Yeah, I think one of the things we need to do is obviously we need to respect each other's culture. You know, we have to make sure that everybody's included in the process, not leaving anyone behind. And we have to stress education as the #1
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you,
We're
sir.
going to go out to Luke Moretti and Maria Gennaro right now.
Yeah, I know we're coming to the closing moments of the broadcast here. What I wanted to bring in, Martha McMillan, a family victim. Nephew was shot within the last 2 weeks or so. He's still in critical condition. 25 years old, is a gang member. Another nephew is dead. You wanted to say what? So you have 2 dead in your family.
What I want to say to address this to the panel, to the mayor, is that we don't bring guns in here. We don't bring drugs in here. And the thing is, everybody's talking about, how can you help us? How come the mayor's not in the hood? This is the hood. They should be here where we are. Where we are. You talk about the jobs and the gun, education. Where's education? I mean, the council, the whole council is there. Is there anyone in the hood with us? I'm on the street. I talk to the pimps.
You're on the front lines, is what you're saying.
Line.
You know what's going on.
People, so I know what's going on.
All right, I'll tell you what. Obviously, we could do 3 hours on this, and I wish we could, and maybe we're going to do more in the future. I don't think that's out of the question. But someone else brought up an interesting point also, that we're talking about youth here. We're talking about gangs, violence. Perhaps we should have youth here. The kids here to listen to this, and perhaps we can incorporate that down the road. But let's go over to Maria right now. She's standing by with someone as well. Maria?
I quickly want to leave this on a bright note. This with me right now is Rhonda Lee. 7 kids you adopted. You say family values. Way to go.
It's a family value. It's a thing. And I think we need to come back and get our families back together. They came into our home and took out our family. We don't have no control over our kids anymore. This is why I am a foster parent. This is why
We've got to go. We thank you for all the good work you've done. Back to you, Keith.
Friends to the elderly here at the Community Center, thank you for letting us use the place. We'll do more of this in the future. Let's go back to the
Luke,
studio
thank
now.
you. We have a lot of people who wanted to say a lot of things tonight, which is a lot of material for a program that we hope to have in the future.
We're going to leave you now and rejoin ABC's primetime programming schedule tonight, but this discussion will not end here. Our audience will have a chance to touch base with the panel and share their thoughts on where we can go next. And there is a series of AM Buffalo specials planned on this subject in the coming days and weeks as well.
We're going to have a lot of news programs on this, and we want to thank you for joining us tonight. We hope that you'll join us in the fight to take back the streets. We thank all our panelists, all our guests in the studio. Be sure to join us for Eyewitness News at 11. We'll bring you continuing coverage of tonight's meeting. For Luke Moretti, Maria Gennaro, Keith, and myself, good night.
Good night, everybody.